All right, we're recording. Hello, everyone. Hello, Joyceline. We actually got someone that joined. That's awesome. It's a little last minute. I didn't send out a notification. I had an hour, and I wanted to knock out a module for lecture for you guys for concert and touring. So today we're going to talk about touring and show personnel. Joyceline, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. As always, either in the chat or unmute your mic and just mute it back afterwards. Let's see. We're going to look at touring and show personnel. As I mentioned last time, quiz 3 will be for extra credit, and I have not sent out quiz 3 yet. It's going to go out this week. I finally finished it. And also, quiz 4 will be easy. It'll be easy, and I think very, very useful. And it's something I really wanted to do and want to start doing more in classes, doing some more real-life application stuff. So I can wait to share quiz 4 with you guys, which I'll do at the end of this. So as always, before we get started, which shows did you guys see this week? Hopefully y'all are going to shows. I sound like a broken record every time I say that, but it really is about going to shows, meeting people, making stuff, right? So shows I went to last week, a little bit of a crazy calendar, was working a show with Heather Land. So it was like comedy week for me. At Heather Land at the Plaza in Orlando. Nate Bargatze, comedian, sold out show at the Tampa Theater in Tampa. Then another sold out show the next day in Tampa with the last podcast on the left. And I came all the way down to Miami to you guys on Saturday at the Olympia for last podcast on the left. And more crazy shows this week. I have a show every day starting today, this week. So doing my best to try to get back to messages, and I'll get back to all the messages and everything today. To see, saw Rick Moon at Ball and Chain. Where's Ball and Chain at? Is that in a venue in Miami? Actually, I haven't heard of that place yet. Very cool. So Joyce Land's going to shows. All right, cool. That's in Miami. Ball and Chain. All right, so let's dive in. So first, so some of this is going to be a little bit redundant with the last lecture. But basically what we're going to do, I'm going to go through all of the touring personnel and show personnel, because starting next week, we're going to start diving a little deeper and looking at some venues and like how venues operate and how they all work. So this kind of be a little bit of a recap from last week and overview of weeks to come. But these are all the different roles in the touring industry. And for this lecture, I'm used all my pictures. I went to see Guns N' Roses a couple of weeks ago in Jacksonville, one of my favorite bands. So all the pictures and this slideshow will be from that concert. So the first role when it comes to the touring personnel, of course, there's the artist, right? So there's the artist and whatever band that they're touring with. So this could be, they're traveling a full band. This could be drummers, guitarists, all the musicians that are playing in their band. If it's a hip hop thing, it could be other rappers, it could be a DJ. If it's an EDM thing, it could be some musicians, it could be other DJs, it could be just the main EDM artists, right? There's opening artists that are touring. So just from artists alone, you could sometimes have anywhere from 1 to 20, 30 people on the road that are just artists. And that's not even including the working personnel that are on the road. So when it comes to that, the first person on the road usually is the tour manager. And that is kind of the person, and tour manager is very similar, not very similar, but it has similar aspects to a manager. And what I mean with that is they wear multiple hats and do multiple things until the team grows, right? So a manager on an artist team kind of does everything until the artist is at a level where they can start adding members to the team. And same kind of deal with tour manager, just on the road. So they manage everything that has to do with the tour, and then as the team grows, they start getting more and more focused on just their role. So really on a large scale level, the tour manager oversees the entire tour, but they're kind of always where the artist is. So when the artist is going to interviews, the tour manager is going to interviews. When the artist is going to do radio, the tour manager is going to do radio. If the artist doesn't show up until sound check, then the tour manager doesn't show up to sound check, and so on, right? So wherever the artist is, usually the tour manager is. So they're kind of like their right-hand man or woman and traveling with the artist wherever they are. And then also kind of just overseeing the tour. So if there's any issues happening at the venue during load-in or anything, The tour manager deals with that. The tour manager will book all the travel, so like any hotels they're staying at, lining up tour buses, semi-trucks, trying to get good deals on that. If there's any flights, the tour manager will book the travel for those flights. And they'll do settlements unless we get to the position I have at the end of this. But the tour manager is also the person that you're going to settle with. So the deals and settlements that you guys have been doing so far, the tour manager is the representative on the artist side, making sure everything looks good on the settlement and the artist is getting paid correctly, and sometimes trying to challenge things on the settlement, right? Trying to obviously look out for the artist and making sure the artist is making the most money possible. So it's really important that tour manager is good with money, good at understanding deals, and looks for potential areas where the artist can make more money. I deal with a lot of tour managers that will like look at the settlement sheet really quickly, maybe not even understand what they're looking at least not thoroughly, and then they take the check and they go. When I feel like, not that our settlements are bad, but there's a lot of bad settlements, or there can be mistakes, right? It can be an honest mistake. A formula may not be adding up correctly on the cell because someone accidentally deleted the formula, and now something is calculated incorrectly. But if the person doing the settlement from the venue or promoter side didn't thoroughly check all the formulas on the spreadsheet, then there could be a mistake. So also the tour manager is kind of just there to be a second set of eyes looking at the settlement, making sure no mistakes are made, right? So a lot of different hats that the tour manager wears. Then next, you have the production managers. And this position is someone you have on both the venue side and on the touring side. So the touring side, we kind of talked about this last week, the production manager oversees everything that happens on stage. And the things that carry what's on stage, and where to park / store the things that carry what goes on stage, right? So when you are coming with semi-trucks or buses and trailers, the production manager makes sure there's enough parking for everything, makes sure there's a parking map. So when everyone shows up at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody at the venue yet, all the trucks and buses get parked in the correct place. So when people do show up to work and start unloading the show at 8 a.m., everything's kind of like in its right place, and we don't have to reposition trucks and buses before we start loading and then lose a bunch of time, right? So that's one of the roles the production manager on the touring side is responsible for. They usually work in an office either with the tour manager or a separate office for the day at the venue. They're advancing shows during the day. They're overseeing all things production all day long. And that's kind of the role of the production manager on the artist side. When it comes to advancing, the production manager will introduce the promoter or venue rep that's advancing the show with everyone that's on the tour that the reps need to talk to, right? And then on the promoter or venue side, there's a production manager, or can also be called technical director or tech coordinator. And those are the people working for the promoters and venues. So that's kind of what I do. They advance the show with the production manager and a tour manager and everyone else on the artist side from the venue and promoters perspective, making sure the venue and promoter has all the information that they need for the show, to make sure the show's just running smooth and good all day long. And that's where like a really good advance comes in, right? And that's what we kind of like talked about last week or in the last module. Let me see. What am I missing? Production and tech director on the venue side. They're there from load in to load out. They do the settlement from the venue or promoter side. So they're the first ones to see any numbers. They're the first ones to see how many tickets were sold, so like a box office audit. And then they plug that all into their spreadsheet and then present that to the tour manager. And then the settlement process starts. And there's many different ways. It either can happen at the end of the day, which is the funniest joke about the music industry is you work 16, 17-hour days, and then after working all day long, when you're exhausted and tired, now you have to be an accountant and go through a very detailed settlement, right? So if it's a club show, it's easy. there's not a lot of numbers to go over. But when you're at a amphitheater, arena, or stadium, you're going over lots of line items to make sure everything's correctly and everything's calculating right. And then sometimes you do it at the end of the day. Sometimes a lot of tour managers or tour accountants want to see bills or invoices or expenses as they become available, right? So if I have a runner, which we'll go over in a second, and I'm paying them a flat rate of $250, I should have an invoice for the runner first thing in the morning. If I'm pre-shopping everything that they want in their dressing rooms, like all the alcohol and food and everything, I'll have receipts for that first thing in the morning. If I'm renting audio or lighting, that's done in advance. And a lot of times the production managers sign off on that. On the production manager on the artist side will sign off on that in advance. And then I'll have those bills already, right? Marketing is already done by the time the day of show happens. So I should have an ad pack, what they call. So it's an ad pack that details out everything that's been done marketing wise. And that should be ready at settlement or before settlement as well. So those are some kind of things I can hand to the tour manager earlier in the day, and kind of as other expenses become available, and I'll hand those off, right? So most of the times, for most amphitheater, some arena shows, you can do that throughout the day and then settle the show day of. Sometimes the bigger shows, like big arena shows and stadium shows, might actually take 2 to 3 days after the show has happened to completely settle, because you're working on percentage deals. There might be other money that goes into the deal, like merchandise, food and beverage, parking, right? So if you're Taylor Swift, you're getting a cut from everything. Like all revenue a promoter makes, Taylor Swift's getting a cut too. So that settlement can be days or weeks sometimes after the show actually happened, before they know how much she's going to make for the show. So there's a lot of little details that go into that, and that's why settlements are so important, and that's why we're going through so many settlements in this class. So next is the stage manager. This one's a little simpler, not too much involved in that, and this is usually with bigger artists that are playing at least amphitheaters and up. This is a person that's just on stage the entire time throughout the show. They're kind of directing to us as cases and things roll onto the stage or onto the deck. They're kind of just controlling traffic, pointing where everything needs to go to the people that are working locally, right? So the local stagehands and the local audio and production people. They're just kind of just pointing and guiding traffic where all the cases go, what gets unpacked, and where does it go afterwards. And then they're on stage throughout the entire time during the show. Whereas the production manager on the smaller tour will handle that part as well. So they're also the stage manager. But then on bigger tours, while the show is happening, the production manager might be in the office working on other shows, right? So, or start getting information to the tour manager for future shows and so on. So like production manager is kind of like an office job on the touring side when it comes to bigger shows, whereas on the smaller scale, they're the stage manager also. So they also could wear multiple hats. Then you have your techs. So again, tour manager or production manager could wear this hat on a smaller scale, where they might also run sound. So two different areas to run sound from. There's front of house, so everything that the audience hears, and then there's monitors, everything that the artist hears. And this could be, so you see the guitar player here from Guns N' Roses standing on top of something. That's a stage monitor, right? So that's a speaker on stage and what the artist hears. Or sometimes they wear these monitors in their ears, like headphones, they're called in-ears. And that's another way they can hear sound. So there's a sound engineer that controls what the artist hears in their in-ears or on their stage monitors. And then there's a audio person that runs sound on what the audience hears, that people that come into the show. And a lot of times the production manager and tour manager could also wear one of those hats. Other techs you'll have on the road are lighting designers, so they'll deal with anything that has to do with lighting. Then you could have, and then lighting people on a smaller scale will also handle anything that's to do with video. And then on a bigger scale, you'll have a separate person to deal with just with video, especially when it's a show like this one, Guns N' Roses, where they have LED screens all over the stage, LED screens on their guitar and bass amps. They have these screens on the, so it's these, there's on, I don't know if you can see it on this image, maybe you'll see it on one of the images, but there's the screens on the side of the stage. That's kind of like a video of what's happening on the stage, right? So people that are sitting further back can kind of get a closer look at the band that's on stage. So a lot of times when you're at a big show, you might end up watching the screens more than what's happening on stage. And that's called IMAG. So the letter I, like an iPhone, and MAG, M-A-G. And it's just like cameras on stage and around stage. To get different camera angles of what's happening on stage. So you have someone controlling that. What else? You can have techs for different instruments. So you can have a guitar tech, a bass tech, a drum tech, a keyboard tech. So again, the bigger the show is, the more techs you're going to have to help with the different instruments. Like so in bigger artists, like if it is Guns N' Roses, each person will have their own tech, right? So Slash will have a guitar tech that is his guy, no matter if he's playing with Guns N' Roses or he's doing a solo project, whatever it is, he just has like the same person working with him for every show that he does. So these are your techs on the road. Then techs at the venues, same thing. You always will have someone that's a head audio and a head lighting from the venue side. Even if the tour travels with audio and lighting people, they're just there on the venue side because they know the venue, they know the ins and outs of how the venue works. They know the usual kinks in the venue. They know where the power sources are. So they're just making sure that the touring audio and lighting people just have everything they need, right? And then again, you can have an in-house video person. You have stage hands in-house. You have loaders, people that are just on the truck and getting cases off the truck. You have wardrobe people, so kind of some of the positions that we talked about last week. So next, you have the merchandising manager. So again, on a smaller scale, the tour manager or production manager might wear one of those hats. They might also be in charge of merchandise. If the tour manager is doing settlement, running sound, and they're in charge of merch, they're probably going to ask the promoters or the venues that have someone locally that they'll pay $100 or $125 plus tips to sell merch for them. So a lot of times I'll need merch people. So this is kind of like a little plug after you guys take this class and you're looking for work. For those of you that are doing good in the class, I mean, I always want to try to provide opportunities for everyone, but when it comes to this, I always want to trust good people. But for those of you that are doing good in this class, if you're interested in some extra work, feel free to reach out to me once this course is over. It's at the end of the semester, because I always need people that are selling merchandise for me at shows or that are runners at shows. So usually the tour manager or production manager will hire a local person to sell merchandise for the show. It's a great way to get experience. On a bigger tour, they'll have a merchandising manager that'll handle all the merch, and we'll usually sell the merch. But then again, when you start going to arenas and amphitheaters and stadiums, you have multiple merch stations, and then you are hiring multiple people to help sell merchandise. And then the merchandise manager on tour is kind of just overlooking all the different stations and making sure everything's stocked up well. There's plenty of shirts of all sizes. They're going to the merchandise truck and getting more stuff to make sure that the local sellers have everything they need. They help set up everything like you see here in this picture, make sure everything has price tags on it, making sure all the products are out, making sure the local merchandise people have credit card machines, a bank, and all that stuff. So whatever they need to be able to sell as much merch as they can. Let's see, next we have the VIP managers. So we kind of talked about a little bit about that already. On the artist side, the VIP manager handles the VIP, right? Anything has to do with the VIP meet and greet. The VIP manager will handle. On the venue side, it's usually the front of house or operations manager that'll staff and handle everything VIP related. And that's pretty much it. The VIP manager is kind of just in charge of making sure when the VIP is happening, where is it happening, where do people check in for the VIP, how many people are coming to the VIP, and kind of handling the details of what is the VIP experience. Is it just a quick photo in front of a backdrop? Is it a sound check party? Is it a party that includes maybe food, right? What is the VIP? And they kind of go over that with the venue rep, which again will be either front of house manager or operations manager. So next we have tour accountants. This is again a bigger scale tours, so this is now usually arenas and stadiums. There could be a person on the road instead of the tour manager that's doing the settlement stuff. Nothing else different to that. They usually will come in with the tour manager later in the day, or they might be there. Let's say if it's an 8 a.m. load-in, they might come in at 10 or at noon, right? Or they might come to the venue early enough to grab some breakfast, maybe go for a walk, and then, or maybe go see the sights a little bit of the town, and then they'll usually be there by around noon to start collecting invoices and bills and start preparing everything for the settlement. And if it's a bigger settlement that might take a few days afterwards, then the tour accountant will work on the settlement for the next few days and making sure that all the numbers are coming in correctly. And then at some point they settle with the venue and then either have a check or a wire sent to the artist. Caterers, so that's on the venue side, sometimes the artist side, but the artist will usually have a writer like we looked at last week. There'll be, or last module, there'll be a suggested menu or menu parameters. So they'll send that to the promoter rep, which is usually the production manager or tech coordinator or tech director, or the venue's caterer directly, right? So what I do a lot on bigger shows, is I'm already talking to the production manager or tour manager, so whoever handles that part of the tour, I'll introduce them to whoever my caterer is for the day. So I set up the caterers, right? As the production manager from the venue promoter side, will set up who the caterer is. Then we'll do an introduction. The caterer will send them a menu, and then the tour will sign off on that menu. They go over how many people are being fed for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like you guys should have seen in the writer for Sublime that I sent you guys. What else? The caterer will a lot of times pre-shop all the things that go in a dressing room, so that all the hospitality stuff, the food, the alcohol, the snacks, the deodorants, whatever else there is. And the caterer will a lot of times for us supply the towels, right? So if I need towels provided, and this is more for the venue that may not have like towels in-house. If I'm at a theater, then the venue's providing that. If I'm outdoors or at an arena or a stadium, a lot of times my caterer will also provide whatever towels I need. And these towels are for, for people to take showers after the show or for on stage. Like you always see artists wiping sweat or musicians wiping sweat on stage. So those are just the stage towels, which are usually black or dark blue. And these are like little hand towels that the artist uses on stage. And the caterer will help provide that as well. So that's pretty straightforward. Then next we have runners. So the runners a lot of times will work sometimes with the caterer, with the venue. The runners are hired by either the promoter rep, so either I would hire the runners or the venue provides the runners in the house. And these are people that are there from load-in until whenever the tour says they don't need them anymore. A lot of times their day starts with taking the drivers to the hotel. So like the drivers from the trucks and buses, they drive overnight, right? So let's say your show ends at midnight or at 11 o'clock, you start packing up the trucks and buses. You're all packed up by 1 o'clock. Say your bus call is 2 a.m. and then they're driving from 2 a.m. to 6, 7 a.m. to the next venue. And then they sleep during the day. So they kind of have like a night job. So the runners will first thing take the drivers to their hotels where they stay during the day and sleep. Then the runners will do any errands that are needed. So it could be taking someone to a music store, taking someone to a local gym. I've had runners take someone to go see a movie at a movie theater and then pick them up afterwards. Runners will take the band sometimes to the radio station to do press. Pretty much anything you can think of that has to do with a tour or an artist, the runner will do. If there's no laundry on site, the runner might grab a bag of laundry and take it to a laundromat and wash the artist's laundry. If the tourist travels back to the caterer, if the tourist traveling with their own chef, the runner is shopping for the tourist chef. They pretty much run around all day long running errands for the artist. And on bigger productions, you'll have several runners. Like I think I've had as many as 4 or 5 runners on a show. 5 we had for Slayer, and all 5 were busy nonstop, just running around picking up things for the artist. And they usually report to the tour manager, production manager, or I guess the position we didn't talk about is the road manager or tour management assistant. They will also be there from the second load-in happens to load out, right? So the tour manager doesn't show up until 4. They obviously aren't reporting to the tour manager. They'll report to the production manager or a tour managing assistant or the road manager, and they're sending them around running errands all day long. And then I guess a lesson, which just seems silly to say in here, but I've seen this happen. If let's say you're on the promoter side or the venue side, and you're like the venue or promoter rep, the runners for that day are working for the artist, not for the venue or for the promoter. So it's really important to know. So if you as the venue or as a promoter want to send the runner out to go run an errand for you, make sure you always clear that with the tour, right? Because again, on show day, they're not working for you, they're working for the tour. Because it's a position that the tour requested. So same thing as you won't go on stage and grab a stagehand or grab your audio tech and ask them to go do something for you because they're not working for you that day. They're working for the tour. So really, really important to note, right? I had a production manager once that got in really big trouble with a tour and a venue because they yelled at they told a runner to go run an errand for them, and the runner wouldn't do it because they had to report to the tour, and the promoter rep yelled at the runner and tore them a new one and told them that they're working because they hired them and so on, which is okay. Yeah, the promoter rep is the one paying the bill. But that promoter rep got in trouble. So at the end of the day, the runners work for the tour first, for the venue second, and then for the promoter rep last. So if you need a runner for you as the promoter rep, usually that'll be called a production assistant, and they can go run errands for you, but never take the tour's runner. So that's a very important lesson, something I've learned in recent months. Next are your front of house and operations managers. So these people work on the venue side, and so like your production manager or tech directors or tech coordinators, they handle everything that's happening on stage, right, production wise. And then your front of house or operations managers, they will handle everything that is affecting the audience. So they'll manage the lobby of the venue or the concourse of an arena or stadium. They'll hire the security for the day. They will hire any box office people, ushers, which are people that are taking you to the seats. They'll hire merch sellers. They'll hire people to work the VIP meet and greet. And they kind of just manage the staff and the operations of the event. So making sure everything from the fan perspective is working correctly, right? And is running smoothly. So here in this picture, you see these people in the red shirts that say safe on it. That's security for this show. And the operations or front house manager is hiring all the security guards that are working at the arena for that day. Or in a bigger level, there'll be a security director on the venue side or a head of security, and then the front of house and operations manager will be like the person that they report to. That'd be like their boss. Then box office, it's pretty simple and straightforward. They're the people selling the tickets. So when you come to the ticket window, you buy a ticket from the box office. they may also manage the will call, so any tickets that were purchased online that they're picking up at the venue. They'll also manage the guest list. So if the artist has a guest list, they'll manage that. And then sometimes the guest list can come with passes, right? So their family and friends, and then they'll leave passes for them. So the box office manager needs to make sure that the correct people are getting backstage passes, meet and greet passes. If there's photographers at the show, they'll need a photo pass, and the box office person is making sure that they receive a photo pass. Sometimes with a photo pass, there is a policy. So like you can only shoot photos during the first 3 songs. You can only be in this location. And then after you're done, these are the locations you can still shoot photos from the back, or you can't shoot photos at all. You have to provide a copy of the photos to the venue or the artist sometimes. So they'll make sure that the photographers are signing that photo policy, right? And the photographers are usually working for like local media outlets, so the local newspaper, the local blogs, local YouTube shows, TV shows, and so on. Those are who the photographers are working for. Security, also pretty straightforward. The front of house manager will usually schedule and manage the security, or the operations manager, or they'll have a head of security that works for the venue, and then the front of house or operations manager is just making sure that those people are hiring the proper amount of security and making sure that all the positions are guarded. They're hiring the proper amount of ushers and so on. If you need police, your head of security will schedule however many police officers you need. They'll sometimes either the security manager or the front of house and operations manager will hire EMTs and paramedics. What else? If you need, as we talked about last week, if you need bomb sniffing dogs, or usually not drug sniffing dogs, but usually just bomb sniffing dogs, your head of security will make sure that happens. And then a lot of times there's also, on a bigger scale, there's a head of security that works on the tour as well, right? And they are just traveling with the tour, usually also with the artist and tour manager. Sometimes they'll show up a little earlier before the tour manager and artist arrive, making sure everything's safe and secure during the show, and the venue's safe and secure before the artist arrives. The security person on the tour will meet with the head of security and front of house manager or operations manager from the venue to have a security meeting. They'll go over any potential concerns. They'll go over how many photographers are there. They'll go over if the tour is traveling with a photographer. They'll make sure all the positions are guarded with police and security guards. They're making sure that there's enough paramedics there. On outdoor shows, the 2 security managers on both sides will make sure there's maybe cases of water by the barricades. If you have anybody that's dehydrating, that you can't really get to from the back, that from the front side, those people are getting plenty of water. So there's making sure that everyone's safe, from artist backstage to everyone walking into the building, right? So they're making sure that the venue's doing proper back checks and at least doing wanding or have metal detectors that you're walking through. So on both sides, they're making sure all of that is being done properly. So yeah, that's pretty much it on security side. And then real quick from the artist perspective, who should they hire, right? So if you're an artist or you're a manager, I think a lot of time as the manager, it's a good idea to be the one hiring the tour managers, because that directly has to do with your artist's livelihood, like their personal health, safety, and their finances. So I see a lot more management companies managing that part, where they are hiring the tour managers that are going on the road with the artist. And then if the artist for some reason can't work with that tour manager, they'll let their manager know, and they'll find a different tour manager. So on a bigger scale, and usually big clubs, so 1,000 person and up, the tour manager is a lot of times hired by the manager. On smaller scale tours, the tour manager can be a friend, can be someone that's known the band from day one, and that travels with the band and manages their tour, right? So tour manager is usually the first person that gets hired. A lot of times the tour manager will pull double duty right out of the gate. They'll handle the merch. They'll a lot of times will run sound. They'll also be the production manager, right? And then they'll also handle the VIP, and they're also the stage manager, and also the tour accountant. So tour manager will literally be all of these positions right here in the beginning. Sometimes, so maybe like 80% chance they're also running sound, and then 20% chance they're not. Really, the next person you want to hire, a lot of times it will be a front of house audio tech, but if you're not making enough money yet, you're playing smaller venues, the venues will know sound usually better than anyone that's will know sound for that venue better than anyone that could tour with the artist at that level. Now, of course, you want your artist to sound a certain way, right? And you want to protect that, I guess, intellectual property and how it's presented on a live setting. So of course you want that, and it's very important. So that's why it's helpful to have a tour manager that can run sound in the beginning, because really the next person you should hire after a tour manager is a merchandise manager, someone that's going to help make sure that you maximize the amount of sales you make at merch. And I've literally seen, I've managed an artist that didn't use to travel to merchandise manager, would just let the venues handle the merch, and would make, I don't know, anywhere from $4 to $5 per head, right? So if you had 200 people there, they make between $800 to $1,000 on merch. Then once we hired a merchandising manager, making sure it's all displayed correctly, that's working in the best interest of the artist, maybe working on a flat rate and commission, the same artist doubled the amount of money that they were making on merch just by having a proper person on the road. So I think that's something a lot of times that gets neglected, and it's just merch, right? But it's a giant revenue stream. Sometimes your biggest revenue stream on the road. So it's very important to have a merchandise manager to make sure your merch is managed properly. And look how quick the numbers can jump, right? So if you're having 1,000 people at a show and you have someone that doesn't care, it's $2 per head. You have $2,000, you're making merch. If you have someone that really cares and really maximizes all your sales, that $2 per person can go to $10 per person. So you're going from making $2,000 to $10,000 a show. You do 150 shows a year, that's a lot of money, right, that you're talking about. So it's really important to have a proper person on the road that does merch. Then next, you'll have your audio techs that are traveling with you. So your front of house audio, your monitor engineers, making sure your artists can hear correctly and good, and the audience can hear the show as it should sound. And then this is a person that so your front of house or monitor audio engineer can also be the production manager in the beginning. And then as you get bigger, you bring on a production manager, take some pressure off the tour manager. Then you bring in techs. Then you have your VIP manager. And then last, you should have a stage manager and a tour accountant. And this, again, is usually at an arena or stadium level, right? So if you were to break it down by size venues, the tour manager comes on ASAP. The merchandise manager should come on as soon as you're able to make $400 or $500 a night on merch and up. Your front of house audio engineers should come along once you start playing 400 to 500 person venues and you're selling them out, right? Or you're playing 1,000 person venues. That's when you start traveling with those people. I would say, just to have, for a classroom setting, a guideline on here, the production manager come in at 1,000 capacity and up. Your stage techs, really, unless you have somewhat a very sensitive instrument or a guitar player that literally switches guitars every couple songs, you really don't need a techs until 2,000 and up, or small arenas and up. Again, unless you have someone that has a very specific instrument. VIP managers, the second you have a VIP that makes real money, if you're having 50 to 100 people showing up to your VIP and they're paying $100 per person for that, that could be a good time to have a VIP manager, right? That's on the road with you. Stage manager, really only important and 3,000 seat theaters and up, or small arenas and up. Tour accountants, you really don't need those until you're playing arenas and stadiums. So it kind of gives you some kind of guidelines to when all of those positions should be hired from the artist perspective, right? So that is pretty much it. That covers all the positions. So let me get to the module. Let me change this as the module 4 quiz. Oops, what did I just do? Let me see. Uh-oh. One sec. I'm messing it all up. There we go. Your module 4 quiz. You're gonna make a resume. So what I'll do, I'll send you guys my resume. I'll send you my most recent resume, which is I think a talent buyer specific resume. Let's become a talent buyer again. So I'll send you that as a reference. It doesn't need to be 2 pages. Mine's gonna be a 2-pager, but it's also because I've been in the industry for a very long time. You really only need a 1-page resume. If you feel like you have enough information that really sells you, a 2-pager is okay. And then you're gonna find 3 potential jobs. So with my resume, I'm gonna send you guys a link to an article that I wrote, and that article is going to have a bunch of links and resources to potential jobs. Let me see just something real quick. Sorry, I'm like talking and trying to open some stuff up for you guys at the same time. So show you some things real quick. Let me see. Let's go here. All right. So first thing I'm going to share, let me see, is going to be my resume. One of the things I want you guys to do, which is something that's helped me a lot, and I learned in like I had a personal coach once, and they taught me this. So right at the top, right, you want a summary of qualifications. So out of the 3 jobs you're going to find, your resume should be at least tailored to one of them. And the jobs are always going to list like qualifications that you need to have to be able to get this job, right? Or the responsibilities that job entails. So you should have 3 to 5 bullet points right at the top of your summary of qualifications. Why do you qualify for that job? And then you go through your employment history to education. And then for me to fill the 2 pages completely, I put other professional accomplishments on here as well, right? So I'll send you all that as a guideline. You don't have to use this format. There's people really cool looking, pretty resumes that have like a photo of them on there. It could have a really cool background. So if you want to go out, that's totally fine. But one thing I do want to see is the summary of qualifications, and then like your work and education history. And those are the main things. Then next, I'm going to share a link to this article right here, Finding a Career in the Music Industry. Just a little bit of words of wisdom that I added and where to start. And then here's just a giant link to the major promoters, right? AEG and Live Nation. And then you have a bunch of other promoters, talent agencies, boutique agencies, your major labels. So if you're looking to stay in Miami, Live Nation and AEG could be the way to go. It could be William Morris has an office in Miami. CAA has an office in Miami. The boutique agencies don't. Your major labels have offices in Miami. Publishing companies are usually New York, LA, or Nashville. You can go here. You might in some artist management directory. You might find artist management companies in Miami. Here are some production companies that you can look at as well. There's some live event staffing and ticketing companies. So like CID, right? We've talked about that. They manage the VIP meet and greets. So any of these on this list, these are like freelance opportunities. So you like jobs you can literally just fill in. So like let's say you have class Monday through Thursday, and you can't work a full-time job. Here's some opportunities where you can like literally fill in the gaps. So you can start getting work experience right now. Here are your PROs. I don't know about GMR, but I definitely know BMI and CSAC will have offices in Miami. And then here's just some other job listing sites in the music industry where you can find jobs, right? And then, or you can go to find the venues, right? So you go to polestar.com, jambase.com. You can find all the local venues. So you can see if those venues are hiring, or you can go to Music Festival Wizard to see all the festivals and see if those festivals are hiring. So you need to find 3 job opportunities from all of these links. If the more real you obviously make it, the more beneficial it's going to be to you personally. And you're going to tailor your resume to at least one of those job opportunities. And that is it for the quiz. So any questions before I sign off for module 4? Give it another second. This quiz I will try to make available tonight, and will be due on Sunday. And then I'll try to get you guys the module 3 quiz, which is extra credit only, ASAP. And like I said, anyone that's attempted a quiz, I'll throw this one in too. So if you've attempted quiz 1, 2, or 4, then you get an automatic 100 on quiz 3, since I'm the one that dropped the ball on that one, being on the road. But all right, that's it. This is it for module 4. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week and go see shows, meet people, make stuff. Take care. Talk to y'all soon.